Hi, everybody. Welcome to another episode of Coffee Talk with CastleHill. On today's episode, we're going to be talking about a new announcement or an announcement of GRC as a service for MetricStream. And I have two of our principals, Joseph Arokiaraj and Carol Spartz, who will be joining me to talk a little bit about the service offering, how it's a little bit different for MetricStream, and where we have opportunities to help customers get the most out of their investment that they've made in the platform. So I'm just going to talk a little bit about GRC as a service as sort of a background, and then we'll get into more of the specifics about MetricStream. And so the product offering that we have, it's unique in the industry where we help customers with their GRC platforms, but not only the GRC platforms, but the GRC programs. And really that's the differentiator, is that we're helping from the business, the risk business, as well as the technology perspective. We do that in a very cost-effective way. It's effectively an all-you-can-eat buffet where you don't have to worry about ups and downs or peaks and valleys in your capacity requirements. We're able to help smooth those out for you and work with your risk programs to make sure that they're being the most effective relative to what you're trying to achieve from a risk management perspective, as well as what you're able to achieve from the tool and capabilities perspective. So we've just started to roll this out for MetricStream, and Carol and Joseph have been working hard to make sure that we fine tune the offering for the MetricStream platform as well. So we have our processes, we have our capabilities, but also doing it with the unique strengths for MetricStream and how we can help customers with that. So first off, if I'll ask you both, so what are the business benefits for this? What is a company really going to see when they get through this, and what should they consider relative to using GRC as a service? Joseph, do you want to start?
Sure. Benefits-wise, they will be able to sort of extend the initial implementation, the go live that they start with MetricStream, right? Because if I think back, typically you do a product plus kind of a project where you start off with one product and then you're focused on a specific use case, and then you go live, which gives you the necessary focus that you need. But then from there, you have to really extend into a few other things to be able to provide that enterprise view of GRC. And that's where this GRC as a service kind of a focus that we provide gives you the ability to not only look at the technology aspect of it, but also the people and the process aspects which come into play, as you know, when you're thinking about building that program and the broader enterprise view of GRC, if you will, across multiple products.
Absolutely. No, I think it's it really drives that capability. So Carol, is this for any size MetricStream customer, or is it really only for big financial services firms? What do you think?
I think it's for any size customer that wants to get full value out of their investment in MetricStream. So it can be used for a small company to get to drive the maximum value with the minimum investment, or it can be used for more complex needs that companies have. But what really drives it is, do you need to get this done with your software, and are there regulations you need to meet? Are there risk programs that you need to make sure are effective? So over time, you're gonna really realize the benefits of not having to increase your staff, not having in response to every change that's going on out there in the market, but also really getting true risk benefits. So truly starting to see information and data that helps you manage your risk.
Yeah. And also, if I can add one more point, we are very business focused, right? In the sense that, as I mentioned, once you go from the initial implementation into the next few modules or across enterprise, you're having to deal with folks, people, and the process together, the whole business process, if you will. Understanding what they're trying to do, what the business pains are, and kind of think along those lines, and then really help them with the broader ROI, if you will, because getting that value, demonstrating that value is definitely going to be a bit more time consuming than that initial push to go live, right? So that's where I think we can definitely add a whole bunch of value there.
Sure. And I know you both talked to me about the GRC journey and some of the language that we use in MetricStream. specifically, where should somebody think about GRC as a service in the journey? Where should they do that? Look at CastleHill to come and help them out.
Yep. So I can start there, and then Carol, you can chime in. Typically, that initial implementation, as we started to talk about here, and when I say that, I'm really thinking about post-implementation. So right after that initial implementation, and we are taking stock in terms of where do you want to go next. There again, I want to take it back to the typical methodology that MetricStream uses. They call it Product Plus, which gives it that initial focus, I think. And also, if you're doing a fixed cost kind of a project, limited budget, it gives you that necessary focus and limited use cases that you can focus on and go live very quickly. And what you're doing there is you're looking at just the key features. They call them packaged features that come out of the box, right? So thinking is that you focus on that, save all any of the extension and customizations for a future wave, and really get that implementation up and running. So that's where we can come in right after that. And then when customers are then beginning to use it, and then I always strongly believe in letting the users use the system for a little bit, make sure they know the ins and outs, and then think about deep customizations. Otherwise, you're making customizations too soon, and then a few months down the road, you might realize it's not necessary, right? So that's where we can come in right after that period of the initial implementation, the users really getting into the system, and we can come in and help with that hands-on aspect as well. And more importantly, look at the customizations, look at what they're trying to solve, whether it's reporting or anything else, and help with that broader ROI and to be able to really demonstrate it.
And I would just like to add to that, if I could. There are a lot of things on the GRC journey that you're not going to do in the first 6 months, maybe not the first year or 2 years.
Hopefully.
And what GRC as a service really provides is an opportunity for you to take your time where you need to. So, for instance, defining libraries, it can take some organizations a couple of years. If you have GRC as a journey, then you have people there helping you to the degree you need it, and you can get things done over time. If you hire an implementation team, you've got to get it done now or in the next 6 months, or keep paying them or keep paying those costs. So I think one of the biggest benefits, because this is a journey and it does take time, of GRC as a service, and we have deep knowledge to provide, is that we can guide you. You don't need to have a large project and 10 consultants. We can provide the consulting you need when you need it.
Whatever it is that they need, right? Whether it's help with testing or whether it's help with certain focused development activities, whatever the case may be, correct? Yeah, we can certainly help.
Right. And the users tend to try to get everything done because they know the implementation team is going away, or the special project team is going away. And that just doesn't really work well. I mean, there's too many barriers, and I see that as a point of failure in a lot of projects.
Yeah. And then here again, we can, I think of our service as a complementary kind of a service to what MetricStream starts, right? And then one other point that comes to mind is really that change request kind of a focus. And what I mean by that is not in a negative way, but it's just that once you're done with the initial implementation, then the subsequent activities or the subsequent phases typically are based on change requests. And there's a little bit of a confusion on the customer's side, I think, because initially they're typically working with folks back in India, that offshore, onshore kind of a model. And then there's a little bit of a hesitation to continue that in the future phases because time difference. And what if I'm not ready as a company to start with the change request process because my budget isn't there right now? What if I'm going to have to do it 6 months later, right? So that's where the peaks and valleys kind of an issue might come into play. And as a result, customers look for this kind of a service typically where you're able to level it off by provide a service that's all year round. And you can pretty much work with whatever works for you. And like Carol said, sometimes it could be 3 months, 6 months, whatever the case may be.
You know, the other thing is that a lot of these risk professionals are really trying to drive change into their organizations, and that takes time. So doing things in a big bang or trying to get them all done at once, it really is high risk, and a lot of times there's failure. But if you do them over time and you take steps, and there are clear steps that make sense to take, this model is really conducive to that, because you don't have to keep going back for more money or go back and say, can we do this now? And you don't have to do it all at the beginning. You can take those steps. So
Yep.
That's another reason I just think I wish when I was doing this model was available. I really do.
You've both talked a lot about the process side of it. Maybe talk a little bit about how GRC as a service helps you from a process perspective as well. Maybe from the both angles of the software development lifecycle, right? You've alluded to it a little bit, but also that whole requirements process of, getting that feedback from the users and incorporating it. Now that we don't have to do it as a big bang project, we don't have to go and find money for it. How does GRC as a service help to streamline that process? Want to start, Carol?
I think I would say primarily coming from where I was at and in my position, what it really helps you do is set good priorities. So there's a lot of times there's an overriding vision. We want the whole organization to be integrated and looking at this from a risk perspective and making good decisions, and we want the business engaged. But there's a lot of steps that have to be taken to get to that point. So sometimes there's a lot of pressure on the risk groups to get everything done at once and make this huge change that's just not feasible. If you can do things one step at a time, you can get the business engaged, get some success, get them more engaged, etc. So it takes the pressure to have this vision that's really not attainable in one or two implementations, but really can be attainable over a 3-year period. It's amazing what you can attain. But it has to be strategized, and it has to be at the speed that people can do their day jobs. So that's the other issue. If I'm a compliance or I'm a risk professional, they're not giving me full time to implement this system. I'm still doing all of my daytime responsibilities.
Right.
So this is really a great way, without breaking the bank, to factor that in, I think.
Yeah, taking a building blocks approach of really starting with the foundation elements, building that out, and then starting to implement your first module, second module. And then again, we can help prioritize based on what customer wants to do, and also based on best practices in terms of what we know works. For example, a lot of times issue management as a singular platform works well, because issue management as a product is also something that works quite well in MetricStream, and that could be a starting point, for instance, right? So start there, and then let everybody else slowly join in from a risk perspective, from a compliance perspective, and everywhere else, one by one. So that way you can kind of pace yourself a little bit. And also along the way, as Carol pointed out, adoption becomes critical. If you're able to get people to use something that works quite well, like the issue management application with a lot of hooks into various different modules, then you're able to then slowly bring in the rest of it one by one. So that usually is something that we've seen works, and we think we can certainly help in that arena as well.
I know a lot of people talk about...
Go ahead, on, sorry.
No. Keep going.
Oh, I think that what I've seen in dealing with a lot of risk professionals is they really do have a vision to transform their organizations, and they're really passionate about that vision. And I think the strategy that we provide and the services and the pacing of it really helps them achieve that vision. That's what has me so excited. I've worked with the software. I know that the software can help them with their vision, but there's other pieces, and also it's not about a software implementation. It's really about introducing change in your organization and using the product to do that. And the risk professionals within an organization are the ones who understand how to change their organization. So a certain amount of configuring the software to what they need is required. There's often a push from the IT side not to customize or over configure it. And while I totally agree with don't over engineer it, to change is a difficult thing, and to really do it correctly in an organization, it's the people within the organization that understand that. So they really do need to lead it, but they need to be put in a position where they're leading it, not having to do everything. It just doesn't help. It just doesn't work for them to do it all.
Yep. I know we've talked about the crawl, walk, run aspect of things, right? And the GRC as a service really enables that capability. So, and even you've alluded to it both a little bit about the maturity also. So, how does GRC as a service help drive maturity for our company? Where do they get that from that perspective?
Okay, maturity. When you think about it, it could be sort of a readiness kind of a thing where one group might be most ready. You start with that and then get everybody else one by one, right? So that level of that type of readiness is one way of looking at it from a maturity perspective. And then the other aspect of it is that get it done for that one module, make sure it's a repeatable process, and then make sure you're able to then get people to start using it, and then slowly but steadily extend that, right? So that's one aspect of it. And then the other aspect of it is also, as you bring in applications nowadays, although MetricStream has quite a few modules and can solve quite a few business problems, it cannot solve every issue, right? And then more importantly, we all are used to certain things. For instance, I've seen audit folks typically like Teammate, for instance, and they just don't want to use anything else. So in that kind of a scenario, what you're having to do is you're then having to have MetricStream as your platform, maybe your single source of truth, but you're still having to integrate with something like a Teammate for work paper management, something like Workiva for SOX. So that's where you got to think about those aspects as well, which again is a bit further down your maturity curve, if you will, right? So those are some of the things that are typically multi-year plan, and then you have to slowly build on one on top of the other.
Yep.
Yeah, and I think MetricStream has some really good tools for assessing an organization's maturity, and they have some user groups that are, I think, really effective in giving organizations different ideas and a sense of where they fit compared to other organizations that are similar in size or similar industry. I think, though, that really most organizations have a sense of where they're at and where they want to go. I think the key is how to get there and how to break the steps into smaller steps to ensure success and reduce the risk. And I have seen in some organizations, they've done that very effectively. And it's strong leadership, and it's having that clear vision and that commitment to continuously making those steps that really can drive the company's maturity up the curve.
Right, right. And then to add to that, if I may, trying to help the customer with some serious program management, project management even, because it definitely involves that kind of a focus and that kind of an experience, and even best practices. I know it's a term that's often used to mean many things, but to be able to do certain things in a particular way, we have honed in on certain best practices, templates, approaches, right? So that's where those can really help customers go through that whole journey from a maturity perspective.
Really decrease the noise of actually running the program and just executing the program, right? Executing the activity. So, yep. Cool. So one thing which I always like to bring up is, so where does GRC as a service not work for a customer? Like when should they not consider GRC as a service as an option? I'm, being a managing partner of CastleHill, I of course think it's always an option. But in reality, where should we not do it?
Okay.
I think,
Go ahead, Karen. Go ahead.
oh, sorry. I think if you're in an in-house system, I think there's some ways that I think it limits the benefits of the service, but I think we do have a way to bring you into the cloud or help you move into the cloud. But I do think there's some limitations when it's hosted in-house.
That's one. And then, of course, if you're in your initial stages, or rather your first time getting into MetricStream, right? That's something you would rather better off going with MetricStream and then starting out the initial process, if you will, of going live with that 1 or 2 or 3 modules, whatever makes sense for that first wave that you typically 1 module, I would say. And once you have started that journey, understood how that works, worked with MetricStream and getting it up and running, then that longer curve that takes to really take what you've done there and to really extend it into your rest of the organization. And then there again, it's a multi-year process where you take it from compliance into the front lines, for example, right? Where the real users get to use it, your first line, so to say. So that's where it needs more heavy lifting, people process aspects quite a bit. And that's where we can be patient. And having done this for many customers, we can certainly advise you, help you talk through the whole thing. It is where I think it works better, not on the front end.
Yep. And I think you both talked about it a little bit, that the aspect that the customer doesn't have to rush, right? There's no timeline. The clock's not ticking, so to speak, or the meter's not ticking, because we're there for the long haul. We're there for the ability to actually bring it up to that level of maturity overall.
Yep. Yep.
I would just say, though, I would like to interject that at the beginning, I would consider thinking about it as a service, because you want that initial implementation to be successful. I've seen a lot of instances where the company purchased the application, implemented, and didn't have plans for those next steps, and things failed, or they didn't use the product. So I would seriously consider the model from day one. And that's honestly, from my experience, and I've seen quite a few projects, I would consider the model day one. Might or might not work for you, but I would consider it.
Got it. Yeah, I would agree with you, although I thought it might not be suitable. My thinking there was, if you are taking that very focused approach, very limited budget, and I really want to go with MetricStream kind of a thinking, typically can take you there, and then we can come in and help you later once you understand the value. But yeah, you're right. In fact, in many ways, on the front end, looking at your libraries and setting it up correctly, taking the time to set it up correctly, a lot of times will spell success or failure, right? So that's where you're going with it, Carol. So in that sense, I think, there's more value, more focus needed on the front end. Yeah,
I can honestly say that I've seen a project here that I would have seen take 2 years, in some initial implementations take 6 months. So I think there's value in considering right up front how you're doing this, and making and setting it up for success from day one. There's a lot of things you can do up front that are going to save you a lot of pain and a lot of cost. Going forward.
Yeah, the one thing, as I'm thinking through, the one thing that might be that may not be a good fit for this GRC as a service.
You don't have to try too hard, Joseph. It's okay.
Sorry?
You don't have to try too hard. It's okay. No, keep going. I'm sorry.
Yeah, I was just thinking about this scenario, Tim, where there are quite a few customers who have really customized the application quite a bit in the previous release. So in those cases, they're really not looking at an easy upgrade. They're looking at almost like a data migration. So that's where it gets pretty time-consuming and then technical, and that's where they're better off maybe looking at how MetricStream does it, and that they're building the migration path, if you will, and it's
using
better
the tools.
of doing it there.
Yep.
Right? That's what
Yep.
comes.
That's an interesting aspect of it. One thing we've seen in other tools is that sometimes when customers have to make that kind of a leap, it's an opportunity again at the end of that journey to move into a more standardized way of doing things, right? So don't do the lift and shift, right? Think about what your target environment is from a GRC as a service perspective, leverage the new capabilities of the tool, but then work with the service provider to do the data migration, to do that side of it, and move those pieces, because they have the deep understanding of the of the old platform and how to make those things happen. So awesome. All right. Anything else you guys want to raise as a last point? We're just about up on time. We got it all.
I have to say, I always got to say something, I guess. But I do have to say that I worked for a number of years implementing projects, MetricStream projects. And a lot of people did a lot of good work and worked really hard and didn't necessarily see the success that they really deserve to see. And I think structuring it correctly up front, and I really think we've got that puzzle figured out, can take and make the contributions everyone makes work and can make you successful. And I feel very passionate about that because I've seen so many people work so hard and have it not succeed. And I've seen here at CastleHill people working very hard but have it succeed. And it's so rewarding. And I think a lot of risk professionals are hard workers. They're not people that try to skim by. They're people that try to make things work for the right reasons and act with integrity. So it's really nice to see them succeed and see that rewarded.
Yeah, and then to add to that, Tim, at CastleHill, we are singularly focused on GRC, right? So that I think is a key differentiation, because if you look at other firms, they do many other things, right? ERP, and then GRC is one of the many things that they do. But here, this is all we do, which means day in and day out, we are doing the same kind of process, different places, solving different types of problems in the GRC realm. So that is, I think, is very important to consider. And more importantly, we've done this with other vendors as well, right? Like Archer and Process Unity. So that's where I think it becomes critical, something that folks should keep in mind.
Yep.
Yeah, the key thing is we are about making risk work for your organization, not about a certain software product, not about a certain consulting style, we're about making risk successful at your organization. And I think that makes the difference.
Awesome. So I thank you both for participating today and helping us to craft this offering, the variation that we have now for MetricStream as well. I think it's going to really help customers out, as we've talked about. And if folks want more information, please don't hesitate to come to our website at www.castlehillrisk.com. And thank you both for joining me.
Thank you.
Have a great day. Thank you all for joining us. Bye-bye.